Ladies and gentlemen, Bitcoin price had got up above $82,000 last night, got very close to 83,000. A lot of other altcoins also had some run-ups here as well. Now, we're pulling back as we're talking. We've come back down towards $81,000. What does this mean? I'm going to tell you guys in today's video what I'm looking at on the charts in the short-term game. Am I looking to enter a short right this second? No. I will tell you what I'm looking at on the charts to want to enter a short down the road. But there's actually two really hefty conversations that we're going to be having today. This is not a show to tune out on. This is one. I know I say watch all the way to the end every single day. You definitely need to watch all the way until the end. Now, the first one, as you guys see in the title, this is not my hypothesis. I know I had this one a while ago, and I do think eventually there will be some form of a super cycle. What do I mean by a super cycle? I mean where the 4-year cycle doesn't exist, where we don't really have a prolonged bear market for years. And I'm not talking about 1 or 2. I'm talking about 4, 5, 6, 7 years without a bear market pullback. However, there is a popular analyst. Some of you might not have heard of him, but his name is Plan C. He was very popular back in 2021. He just published a report / an opinion about how he thinks that we actually are currently in a super cycle. And even though Bitcoin has been down for the last 7 months, it's dropped 52%. That's actually not a bear market. I'm going to bring on Crux here in a couple of minutes. We're going to have a conversation and discussion on what this would mean if this hypothesis was true. The other big news, though, that you guys need to stick around for, because we're going to discuss in the show, we're going to be talking about the big news all over X right now for Bitcoin holders. Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy notoriously telling people for years, sell a kidney before selling Bitcoin. They're now discussing the possibility of selling Bitcoin. Now, it's not that simple and it's not that easy, which is why we have to have a full conversation about it. But that's the headline. The headline is Michael Saylor, Bitcoin maxi Michael Saylor, who tells others not to sell their Bitcoin. He says he might sell his Bitcoin. Let me know in chat what your opinion of that is right now. Do you know all the details? Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing if Michael Saylor ends up selling his Bitcoin? Actually, we're going to have the conversation. I actually see a case for both bullish and bearish things about the Michael Saylor story. No matter what, though, we're going to have that conversation. Do not go anywhere. Smash the like button even right now if you guys are ready for the show. Let's start off, as we always do, though, with just taking a look at market movements. It's not necessarily too crazy exciting. And I'm going to talk about this here. I'm going to break down what I'm looking for on Bitcoin. Later in the show, we do have Link, Zcash, Aave, Tesla. We might look at a couple other charts as well. But those are the altcoins and stocks we're going to take a look at later on in the show. Right now, you can see, though, we have sustained. We closed last night. The first daily candle close above the resistance level. Right now, we're sustaining above the resistance point. I told you guys I need to see a couple days of opens and closes above this red line, and all of a sudden, I moved to a potentially 50-50 probability of the bottom being in at $60,000. We got up as high, like I said, around 82,800. We weren't able to sustain it. There was some volatility with other charts, one of which, for example, was the oil chart, right? So we had a really big boom on Bitcoin and certain cryptos as the oil charts fell down below $90 per barrel. Now, they're back up to 95, not clearly deciding which way it wants to go at the moment, but this was short-term bullish for Bitcoin. But a lot of you guys are probably asking the question right now, okay, Tim, does this mean should we be looking for long positions on Bitcoin? Should we be longing and FOMOing into this bull run, or was this just a delayed tactic and there will be some form of a pullback coming? Here's where I'm at right now as a trader. I'm currently not in a trade, okay? Like I tell people all the time, sometimes the best trades is to know when to look at the computer, look at the technicals and say, you know what? Not today. But I am waiting for a certain breakout to happen. I'm waiting and I'm looking for certain levels of confirmation. Number one, I've already told you, if we can sustain and get some higher volume coming in, by the way, I don't know why my volume's off. If we can get some volume pop, and by pop, I mean I need to see a big move. If we see a bullish candle with a big volume move, that is the evidence. Remember a couple of days ago when I told you guys that this big movement's happened a lot because of futures, not because of a lot of spot buying. If the spot buying actually starts to come in, making the volume shoot up, I would become extremely bullish on the Bitcoin and crypto markets. The problem is I'm not seeing that. Right? I'm still seeing charts full of a lot of overpriced areas. Now, the daily chart is under a current buy signal, a very light current buy signal, but it's telling us, you guys see these red boxes as the RSI is back up here towards 70. It is saying lower time frames are starting to get into trouble, right? So if you look at the 4-hour chart, we've just been living overextended. Look at the RSI right here, just living in this spot. And in fact, what you actually see happening right now is 4-hour bearish divergence. What does that mean by that? It means that we've technically put in higher highs and lower highs in the RSI. But here's the problem. I'm not ready to enter a short just yet because guess what? We had a great 4-hour sell signal back here. Both my Neurowave and my Kryptonite indicators gave me a sell signal. And traditionally, under normal circumstances, if we're trading this inside of formation, we're at resistance, great. That's a great reason to be short. If you're not in a pronounced bull trend, if the 4-hour sell signals in the previous times using it were good, which they were, by the way, good 4-hour sell signal right in here, good 4-hour sell signal right in here, good 4-hour sell signal right in here, right? If the 4-hour sell signals are working, you're not in a very strong bull trend. You're just in a trading range. Guess what? The 4-hour sell signals that popped up here ended up failing. And what I mean by failing is the markets, the oscillators started going down. Price just kept climbing up. These were failed 4-hour sell signals. So you might be saying, Tim, does that mean your indicators don't work? No, that's not what that means at all. When a bearish indicator is invalidated, that is a sign of strength from bulls. Don't be shorting during that period. Don't pay attention right now. A 4-hour sell signal means very little to me because the bulls are in charge at the moment. It's a very weak bear movement right now. What I want to see to feel better about a short is I want to see a break of structure and a move for the RSI to drop back down below the 50 line, right? I need to see the RSI get back into a weak spot. You can tell there's time periods where, you see more bullishness happening. Take a look here. A lot of bullishness happening with RSI kind of trading between the mid-range and overbought ranges. A lot of bearishness happens when it's trading between the mid-range and oversold action, right? So right now, even if I have sell signals, we're in an extremely bullish category and all of our RSI is staying up here above. I need to see the RSI actually make a significant move and break down and start heading back towards oversold levels, showing me we're back into a level where the bears have strength. Until that happens, I'm not ready to enter into any longer-term bear trend. Now, could I get a couple scalp trades, possibly with like a 15-minute chart? Sure, but I'm not really interested in that right now. If you are interested in that, you should check out our VIP trading group where I do think, after a week, we had like 3 losses in a row, 4 losses in a row. We're back in the last 3 days, 3 wins in a row. We're over $3,500 in profit in 4 weeks. So 10x, we had a little stint. We were losing money. We're already back to making money. Go check that out later on. We'll talk more about that later on. But for me right now, I'm looking at more longer term movements. And with the 4-hour staying in this overbought territory, bullish strength, and the daily chart under a temporary small buy signal, I can't enter a short right now. What I'll be looking for is a daily bearish sell signal, which the last couple have been, I'm not going to call them fantastic. They've been good, though. The last daily sell signal did take us from 79,000 all the way back down to 75,000, right? So I need a daily sell signal, and I need the 4-hour to actually show that the bulls are giving up control on those lower time frames. And all of a sudden, Bitcoin, we're looking at a shorter term short position. Now, the difference is going to be, let me show you over here, right? So this is the short that just failed for me, right? We were looking at shorts all the way down to 52,000. The next time I enter a short, am I shorting? Am I putting it in and planning on a move to 53,000? No. I think I'd probably be planning a move at the greatest. My last take profit probably to be more in the range of 70,000, back down towards this level of support. Then I would look for a fresh, if we lose that and keep going down, then I would look for a fresh new entry to the downside. But right now, even though I'm not fully bullish just yet, even though I think this is a very foolish time to enter brand new long positions, it's the time to sit and wait and look for confirmation. And confirmation is either high volume coming in, confirming the bulls are in control, or a reset on the daily and 4-hour chart that finally gives us bearish momentum to the downside. Is everybody clear on that and how that goes? Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. That's what we're sitting here and waiting on. But we have another conversation that still deals with the chart. And it has to do with taking a look at Bitcoin from a long-term perspective. Let me show a cleaner chart here. And this is going to bring in, I'm going to bring in Crux here in a second to explain this. Now, I've told you guys now that we are in a bear market. And I believe the reason that what confirmed that we were in a bear market was the confirmation move we had back here in February where we broke bullish structure. What's bullish structure? Bullish structure is higher highs and higher lows. When we lost lower lows and we had confirmed a lower high, this is when it confirmed we were in a bear market. But there is a theory out there. I want to show you and then get Crux's take as well, and we'll have a full-blown conversation here. There's a theory out there, like I said, from an analyst named Plan C. Put a 1 in chat if you guys have heard of Plan C, if you know who I'm talking about. Again, you don't hear a lot from him recently. He was very popular back in 2021. A lot of people followed him back in 2021 because he had a lot of interesting theories, and some of his stuff was correct, but he got obliterated. He had the theory of a super cycle back in 2021. It didn't work out, right? But now he's back with a case. I see people, some people in chat are not so friendly. They don't like this concept of super cycle. I'm not saying we're in a super cycle, guys. We're going to have a conversation. This is called a discussion. So stick with me. Let me know in the chat your thoughts. Do you think we're in a super cycle? Do you not think we're in a super cycle? That's not the point, though. The point is somebody thinks we are, and we're going to have a healthy conversation because that's what mature adults do. We don't just call people idiots or dorks for eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. We did that yesterday. We're going to have full-blown conversations and analyze information to understand what is credible and realistic and what is very unrealistic and something that's stupid that we need to throw away, right? But we at least have the conversation first. Now, Plan C, I want to read his tweet here. Bitcoin is about to go through its first super cycle from 16,000 to 250,000. What? Just that premise right there, everybody. That premise means he does not believe this is a bear market. He believes that we are still in a prolonged bull market, just with a delayed winter, but he doesn't call it a bear market. And the last bear market bottom was 16,000. We're heading all the way to 250,000. He said sometime, I believe, in 27 to 28. He says that here, cycle begins in November 2022 at the $16,000 bear market low. The first peak was 126,000, and the mid-cycle low was 60,000. I'll explain more about that here in a second. The next cycle peak will land in the second half of 2027 to the first half of 2028, and I would be surprised to see anything less than $250,000 to the super cycle top. So he's actually saying we could go a lot higher. He's just saying we will at least get to 250,000 by the end of 2027 or very early into 2028 before the next top happens. Now, he draws a really cool picture. At the end of the day, this is just a picture. Don't look at this chart and be like, oh, man, I didn't know that 60K was definitely the bottom. And now he just drew this picture, everybody. But his case for it, and I'm going to bring Crux on, but I want to read his case first. His case is marked at the bottom. How when you take a look at extended bear markets, for example, in 2011, we had a $93,000 bear market. In 2014, we had an 85, did I say 93,000? 93% pullback in 2011. In 2014, 85% pullback. In 2018, 84% pullback. In 2022, 77% pullback. Now, you notice they keep getting smaller, but if trajectory keeps up, this would mean, hypothetically, in a 4-year cycle continuation, the next bear market should be sitting around 70,000. And yet, when we drop down to 60K, we were only at 52%. And here's where he begins to make his case. There have been 2 mid-cycle corrections. Now, to be fair, both of them happened in the same cycle. So it's already starting to break down his logic here a little bit. But he talks about a 57% pullback in 2020. That was not a bear market. That was not the end of the bull market. It was just a very quick pullback, 57%. Then it happened again by 55% in 2021 because of China's mining ban. By the way, I don't know why he's blaming Chinese mining ban. The bigger information back here in the summer of 2021 was that Elon Musk was selling his Bitcoin. An interesting conversation, by the way, since that right after this, we're going to talk about Michael Saylor saying he might sell his Bitcoin, but that's neither here nor there. I want to bring Crux on for this conversation now. Crux, first of all, my friend, how are you doing today? I like your shirt. Looking very festive for the Bitcoin people. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, Tim. I'm doing Hook 'em Horn Orange. That's what we're doing today over here on the Tim Warren Trades channel. Thanks for having me on. This is going to be a good conversation.
Yeah, the thing is, though, that recent comment, now I like your shirt less. So you shouldn't have let me know that. I liked it beforehand. Let's go back here. Let's take a look at this. Crux, just initial reaction when you saw this. What was the first thing that pops into your brain looking at this hypothesis, this thought process from Plan C?
Yeah, so is the bottom in? I think that's the biggest question in crypto right now.
Yeah.
I'm about 20% confident that the bottom is in. about 80% confident that it's not in. So as a 4-year cycle theorist, I have to disagree with Plan C. I would disagree with half of his argument, though. Him saying $250,000 Bitcoin by 2028, I actually agree with, even in accordance with Bitcoin's 4-year cycle. But even if we use diminishing returns, right? So if we did an 8.3x from 15.5 all the way to 126K, we diminish that to just say a 4x this next bull market, 60,000 low times 4 pushes us close to that 240, 250K mark. So I disagree with about half of his argument there.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's stuff even to kind of look at with it. There's some intriguing things. Like I definitely think the reason why we're having this conversation is because there are a couple of intriguing notes about it. But like I said, two things that I think immediately fall apart under my perspective is he called them, this 2020, 21, he called them both mid-cycle corrections, as if that's a very normal thing in the 4-year cycle, which it's not necessarily. What's also funny is both of them happened during the exact same 2019 to 2021 cycle. One of them, as he lists, is a pandemic. Well, what else? What's another word for the pandemic we like to use? Black swan event.
Right.
You can't really take black swan events into account when trying to make an argument for repetitive price movement. So I think already you have to eliminate 2020 as a situation. The 2021 one is intriguing though, right? Because again, if you were around like Crux and I were, you heavily remember the 2021 pullback. And I remember how many people tried. I don't know why I'm looking at the weekly. Let's look at the daily chart here so we can see more candles. All right, well, that just messed up my chart. So give me a second here, everybody. I apologize. There we go. You go back here to 2021, and I remember, it's my first cycle. I'm newer here to the group, to the crypto investing group, and people are screaming, this is a bear market. This definitely is a bear market. And you look at it, and guess what? We only pulled back a grand total of 55%, okay? Hindsight's 2020. We, of course, we go on to put a slightly higher high in. In hindsight, we look at this and say, is that a bear market? No, it's not a bear market. It was just, a mid-cycle correction. But there are some distinct differences. If you want to just go ahead and compare this to what we're going through right now, there are some pretty distinct differences. Number one, this crash happened very fast. It happened very fast. We were talking about this. We dropped from those highs down to, we'll go with the low here, where we dropped. This was a grand total of, I didn't get the exact number. In 34 days, we dropped 54%. Okay, 34 days. Take a look at how long it took us. Like, this wasn't just an overnight thought to crash Bitcoin this time. This was a long, drawn out, painful bear market, right? So in the same time, we dropped 52%. It took us 125 days. We're talking about almost 4 times as long as what happened back in 2021. Number two, as I just said, why do I call what we're currently going through a bear market? I'm not paying attention to all of the little divots along the way. I look at macro moves here, right? So zoom out and look at macro moves. You look at macro moves, and this is how I would draw it. Let's draw this. I would say this is a macro move. I'll give this a macro move. I would count all of this as one move, one move, one move, one move, one move. Boom. Okay. This is why I would not have called a bear market back here in November when we were down at 83,000, because even when I look at that, take a look with me, everybody, that's still higher highs and higher lows. Why is this significant that we dropped 60K? Because we dropped below, not a minor low. I know we dropped below this low a long time ago. A significant low was lost. Go back and look at 2021. Was a significant low lost? The answer, in my opinion, let me know if you disagree, would be an emphatic no. Why would I say that? Because this is how I would treat the 2021 bull market. I would say this was a significant move. This was a significant move. I'll give it a benefit of the doubt and say this was a move, this was a move, this was a move. We double bottomed. We did not drop below anything significant. By the way, my 3-year-old son Brody's outside. I might be a little distracted. My 3-year-old's knocking at the door I don't think he knows I'm live. It's locked, though, so he can't come inside, but that would have been a treat. Anyway, back to the show. Hopefully you guys are tracking here with me. This was a ridiculously fast 50% drop, and it did not break bullish structure in doing so. So again, from a structural standpoint, this makes sense as a continuation of a bull market. This does not. This looks like a slowly took its time break of structure. I think it's completely different. I think it's very completely different, Crux. And again, he made a nice looking list of things. I throw 2020 out. Don't even pay attention to 2020. We're really just talking about what happened in 2021. Is it possible that this is true? I'll make one case for possibility. I want to hear your take on this. The only reason why this is possible is because of conversations we've had over the last couple of days. You and I are sitting in a very similar spot, Crux. I think you just said you think there's a 20% probability that the bottom's in, and that means 80% that it's not in. Even though you and I don't just agree on the 4-year cycle theory still being in existence, we agree that we don't think the bottom's in. I've slightly went a little higher now. Now I'm sitting at roughly a 30% probability that the bottom is in, but that's still not a likely situation. And one of my biggest reasons why is because we don't have bear market bottoms without daily bullish divergences, which we have not had yet. And the only way I would say, you know what? Could 60K be the bottom of this pullback? This is why this headline caught my attention. I was like, well, technically speaking, if I'm wrong on the structure argument, and this isn't a bear market, and it is just a healthy correction, you don't always have to have daily bullish divergence when you're continuing a bull market. Now, the only case I'll say against, I know I'm going back and forth with you guys. I just want to make sure I'm putting all the information. Back in 2021, by the way, we had daily bullish divergence, right? You can see here, we had lower lows in price action closes. All that's lower lows with higher lows in RSI. So that's neither here nor there. But that's my overall point, though, is that one of my biggest reasons to not think that the bear market bottom is in is because it would be too quick, not for your cycle-wise, too quick, meaning the bears really never got their full taste. There's core technical analysis principles that have not been met yet that have always been met by Bitcoin's bottom of the bear market. That's not in play. So that's the only argument I would make. If 60K was the bottom, there is an argument to say maybe plan C is right here, and this was never a bear market. But I don't think that's the case. I'm going to give your take on that one, Crux.
This more or less looks like a healthy correction within a bull market to me. So I agree with you on all of those technicals. But I wanted to add two things as a 4-year cyclist is there's two things we look at. Usually it's about a year from a peak to a bottom. And currently we're about 7 months out of those 12 months. So I think we still have further to go on the downside due to that. But then also the diminishing return. We've hit about a 52% pullback from 126 down to 60K. So I think we still have further to go on the diminishing return side as well. So
right, closer to 70K, 70%, which would be, just so everyone's tracking. Again, that's if the diminishing returns continue, 70% pullback. Whew. Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I disagree with Crux. But
40K.
We're looking at sub 40K. We're looking 38. At 38, 37,000 would be the continuation of a 4-year cycle bear market.
Right. So I'm not completely sold on that. I'm still pretty probable that the bottom is definitely not in yet, though. I think that's fair, and I would continue to DCA these prices.
Right. And that's I think it's really intriguing. I think people need to hear that conversation. So we just kind of laid out. Crux and I have a lot of things we agree on. We have a lot of things we disagree on. We work together. We bounce our ideas off each other. Sometimes I end up changing my mind and agreeing with him. Sometimes he ends up changing his mind and agreeing with me. Sometimes we say, you know what, agree to disagree. We walk away. What I think is awesome, though, and really cool is that despite the fact that we come at it from two different thought processes, we don't agree on everything. It is kind of funny that when you look at our investment strategies, and I'm not talking about trading because he's not a trader, he's an investor. When we look at our investment strategies, they're extremely similar. I say 4-year cycle doesn't exist anymore, but I don't think the bottom's in, but I'm going to DCA anyway, just in case. And he says, oh, no, Tim, 4-year cycle's still intact. We won't have a bottom for a long time, but just in case I'm wrong, I'm going to DCA. We both say DCA, but we disagree on timelines. We disagree on where price is going to be, but effectively we're doing very similar things with our money. There was something else I wanted to say here, but I can't remember what it was. There was one other thing you said that I wanted to respond to.
Maybe lengthwise or diminishing return.
Oh, you know what? There's one thing I wanted to ask you about. Okay, so yeah, here we go. Let's look at the chart again. Good. That wasn't what I was going to do, but what you said reminded me of what I wanted to say. So 4-year cycle, right? I'm not a big fan of the 4-year cycle theory anymore, right? It was a thing. It made sense. Was a thing. I just don't think it makes sense anymore. I think we're waiting on institutions to decide they're ready for the bull market to start. We're not ready on retail. 4-year cycle means retail is the deciding factor. I think institutions change the game here. But I wanted to throw this past you for a second, because if you look at the past bear markets, you have a pretty deciding, like, this is a pretty obvious point. It's not the same blow off top. Let me go to a different chart here. It's not the same blow off top that we necessarily had in 2018 or 2018 and 2015, not 15, 2014. But go back to it. That's a pretty defined peak, right? So one of the things the 4-year cyclists look at, they say, all right, so we're looking for a year to the downside, pretty much, right? 350 to 370 days, somewhere in that range, 360 days. Go back over here, right? Pretty clean blow off top in 28, not there, back here. Pretty clean blow off top, right? How long did it take us to recover out of that? Let's just take a look there to this bottom, 363 days, right? Go back over here. Pretty clean blow off top, right? And it took us, let's go take a look here, to bottom out. This one took a little longer than 360, it took 409, but kind of the same thing. All right, so you see these clean blow off tops that it takes roughly a year. The difference in this bull market top, and there's already a weird one where we put a higher high in here, but there's still a clear point there. When you look from a zoomed out perspective at this bull market, yes, the deciding factor, the deciding high was here in October, but unlike everything else, where we always had a quick ascension and descension, this one we really kind of got up here, if I can do this correctly, this one we got up here in July, and then effectively just traded sideways for months, and then decided to pull back. And coincidentally, I think that we're going to have a bull market restart when the Clarity Act passes. The timeline we've been given is that July, August period of 2026 is when we think it's going to happen. And coincidentally, I don't know why I need to do this, but I'm going to. Coincidentally, 360 days after when we started trading sideways is going to be what? July, August area. What are your thoughts? Like, is that, you might not have thought about before, is that possible in you? Like, the way this bull market is extremely different with more of a rounded top, and the fact that if you start the beginning of that rounding, we are coming up on the 360-day period. Does that change your mind about timeline for a bottom at all, Crux? Or this, I'm trying to get a gotcha moment, but I might not have gotcha.
Well, that's a good one.
Yeah.
So as we continue pushing into these cycles, we're like in our 5th era. At this point, the volatility has come down. So if we don't go super parabolic into a peak, most likely the volatility to the downside is not going to be as hefty. So that's kind of how I see it with the diminishing returns, diminishing losses. Since we didn't go up as parabolic, it's going to be more rounded as opposed to just a point. So I would throw that in there, but I have not thought about before, like the consolidation of a couple months and using that as the year-long period, because I do believe that a fundamental catalyst is probably going to take us out of this bear winter. And if it is, it's going to be the Clarity Act. And if it's not, it's probably just going to be October, and people like myself with that mindset of 1 year after a peak, we start buying, and that will probably bring retail into it and help, with the institutional adoption.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch how it plays all. And I've said, again, while I disagree with you, I think the Clarity Act and institutions will spark the fresh bull market. I told you, I will agree. If the Clarity Act doesn't pass, I will agree with you. And my reasoning is, if we have to wait on retail, we're waiting till October, right? I think retail will come back in October. So if we have to wait on retail, the 4-year cycle is still intact, and we will wait until October. But the depressing part about that is that if we have to wait until October, and I'm starting a new conversation that we're not going to have today. We're going to have this another day, because I've been telling people we're going to have it. I fear that people are going to be very disappointed if we have to wait on the 4-year cycle, because that means the institutions did not get involved, which means probably the Clarity Act bill did not get passed. More on that here in a second. And I'm just of the opinion that if we have to rely upon retail to be the driving factor, we'll see new highs. but nothing special. When we talk about the millions of dollars Bitcoin could be worth, I think that's dependent upon institutional money. Now, I say all this. Some of you might be saying, what are you talking about this other conversation? At some point on a more boring day where there's less conversation to have, Crux and I are going to have a conversation, a debate on his shirt. What Satoshi's plan was when he created Bitcoin. Does it ruin Bitcoin to have institutions get involved? Or did he know from the beginning institutions would be involved and that was part of the plan? We're going to have that conversation. I'm of the opinion institutions were expected and are needed for a massive move. I think Crux disagrees with me, and we'll have a full-blown debate on that one. While I have you here, we'll just cover that really quickly, by the way, so people know this. I'll show this, and then I'm going to get Crux going. Shum's going to come up for the next part of our conversation as we jump into a bunch of stuff with Michael Saylor. Dennis Porter, I don't know if I want to call him an insider. He definitely has relationships with people, politicians all over the country, right? But he put this out here. Clarity markup is happening next week. Hearing this over and over and over again from senators and staff, also hearing that bipartisan votes are being expected. This would be massive. Next week, by the way, would put us into the range or just before this happens. There's this presumed cutoff on the 21st. What do I mean by this cutoff? If we don't have an approved Clarity Act by May 21st, 2 weeks from now, there's going to be another recess where Senate leaves Washington. They go on their vacations. They get too many vacations, by the way. That's a different conversation. But they're pretty much not going to be in session to be discussing this. And it's one of those things that's like technically they could come right back in June and still pass it. But at this point now, they pushed it they pushed it this time last year. They definitely pushed it in the fall. They pushed it earlier this spring. They pushed it in April. There's this level. Let me know what you think, Crux, and let me know what people here think. If we don't pass it by May 21st, how do you stay optimistic that it passes all? They have everything they need to pass it right now. If it's not passed by May 21st, I think there's a very real argument to be made that it does not get passed in 2026. And then the argument becomes it might not get passed during the Trump administration. What's your thought on that one?
Yeah, I think Senator Cynthia Lummis is the one who's been pushing that narrative. If we don't pass it now, it's not going to pass until at earliest 2029. Yeah. I don't buy that argument. I think that's more or less like a fear function to get people to just get on with it. So I'm not, if it doesn't pass in 2026, I still think 2027, 2028, 2029 all still have pretty high probabilities. I would like it sooner than later, but we've seen all these people with a good amount of notoriety, from Charles Hoskinson to a lot of people in the space, Brad Garlinghouse, who said by May, 90% probability. And where are you at? So we're not getting this thing adopted as fast as we want to, but as somebody who would like to, wait and use that as a catalyst later on this year, I'm actually happy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still extremely optimistic it's going to pass. And I think it'll pass by May 21st. There's just too many big money players that want it to pass. But it is a deadline people should be watching. And again, as Crux and I have talked about, and we've gone back and forth with our opinions, I disagree with him unless that happens. If we get a delay in the Clarity Act, all of a sudden I will say publicly, hand up, Crux has been right this whole time. This is a 4-year cycle. We're not bottoming until October. Strap in for a long summer,
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Crux, thanks for coming on today, and we'll have you on again soon to have that debate.
All right, Tim. Thank you for having me, brother.
All right. Now, let me know what you guys think about that conversation. What are you guys' thoughts on that debate? And he wasn't here. I would love if Plan C, if any of you can get this in front of Plan C, I would love to have him come on the show, make his case for the super cycle. I would love there to be a super cycle. In fact, I was one of the people saying I thought that we could have had a super cycle back in the fall of 2025. I was wrong. We ended up getting a bear market. Okay. I was wrong. I still think the next bull market is going to be explosive. There are areas and elements of what Plan C says that I agree with, but the concept of we're not in a bear market, I just don't see it. I don't agree with it from a structural standpoint. But let's put that conversation to rest. We'll have it another day. Now it's time to have potentially the bigger conversation. And when I say it's a big conversation, some of you might think it's simple. The reality is it's actually not. Have you guys seen these reports coming out? Michael Saylor, the man who told people sell your kidneys, or at least one of them, before you sell any of your Bitcoin. Justin Saylor, this is yesterday, by the way. Justin Saylor says strategy may, keyword there is may, may sell a small amount of Bitcoin. Reasoning: to prove liquidity and support dividend mechanics. Core strategy remains accumulation. This is signaling, not a shift. Now, the internet is up in arms about this right now. Even CoffeeZilla. I think he owns crypto a little bit. I don't think CoffeeZilla is completely against crypto, but he definitely calls out scammers and shifty people in the crypto space. He put this tweet out in response to Michael Saylor, and he said, just so everyone's clear, Saylor wants to use Strategy sales to buy Bitcoin. Saylor wants to pay Strategy holders 11.5% dividends by selling Bitcoin. This will not work long term. Now we bring on my good friend, Taylor Strum, to explain to us this chaos. We had a lot of heated thoughts on the internet. Some think this is brilliant. Some think this is hypocritical of Michael Saylor telling people again to sell their kidney, but meanwhile, he's giving us a case for it. Then you kind of open up the conversation of like, what does it mean he's going to sell? Is Strategy in trouble and they actually have no cash flow and that's why they're actually selling and they're just using some grand excuse? Strum, I bring you on here because you're our head of research. You're the one who pours your blood, sweat, and tears into finding out more information on this stuff. Talk me off my mountain. Talk me off my freaking out mountain of why this is potentially bearish news for maybe Bitcoin moving forward.
Yeah, I've been sitting here trying to put together the simplest way to explain this. I've been chatting with Grok. I've been, racking my brain trying to figure out how to explain this as simple as possible. When it comes down to it, we are humans and we have wants. We want things to happen in the world. Understanding what Bitcoin is, it's a finite resource. And if people go out and buy it, it creates even less of that resource to float on the open market, right? So what we want, and by the way, that mechanism creates the price to go up. We want the price of Bitcoin to go up. I listened to the entire Q1 earnings call yesterday from Strategy. By the way, that's what kicked off all of this speculation and frenzy is Michael Saylor and CEO Fung had their Q1 earnings report yesterday. And it did not look pretty, by the way. They're like $15 billion in a loss, an unrealized loss. So, that
let's pause there for a second and not gloss over the large B in that sentence. 15 billion. 15 million would be painful, but 15 billion. The reason I say that, some people don't stop to always think about how many M's go into one B. Right? That's a funny sentence. But $1 million is a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
We're talking about 1,500 millions in loss.
Yeah.
I want to pause on that because that's important. That's important to think about how big of a number that B signals. Continue.
Yeah. And so these guys, I mean, that's good. You're making me actually think about more context that's important. Who has bought MicroStrategy common stock? MSTR, the ticker. Pension funds recently. The Texas pension fund, I believe. So you have pension funds just around the US, the Swedish pension fund, I believe, and other pension funds in Europe, right? They have, and also the Central Bank of Switzerland, right? So you don't have just like a bunch of, mom and pop 401k holders picking up the phone and calling Michael Saylor. You have some of the most sweaty, nervous, and anxious people in the world managing the pension funds of public workers, potentially calling up MicroStrategy saying, hey, what the heck is going on with our common stock? We are getting destroyed. So you have to take into context everything that Michael Saylor is going through. But you don't need, I would either argue you don't even need to do that. All you need to think about is, what do I want? And if you are someone who has invested in Bitcoin, you want Bitcoin's price to go up. Nothing in the quarterly earnings call yesterday made me think that Strategy is going to do anything that makes the price of Bitcoin go down. Everything that they do at Strategy makes the price of Bitcoin go up. And nobody wants the price of Bitcoin to go up more than Michael Saylor. Okay. So that's a very, very important backdrop. Why? He wants it to go up. He wants Bitcoin to go up more than you do because he has pension fund managers calling him all the time saying, why number go down? Why number go down? We understand. We want number go up, right? You don't have that. You might have your wife or your husband asking, hey, what's going on here? But you don't. Okay, you get the point. Okay, so two things are different in this environment in 2026 that did not exist in the past. The first one is the STRC product from MicroStrategy, the company, right? Now, this is a product that yields 11.5%.
Yeah.
I give MicroStrategy $1, right? And I buy 1 share of STRC, or it's not one share, but $1 worth of STRC shares. And I get 11.5% annualized monthly income on that dollar. 11.5. That's really, really high. Right now, you can get, because of everything going on in the Middle East, you can barely get 5% on a 30-year U.S. Treasury bond. So this is more than double of what the treasuries are doing right now. Okay. And by the way, you can't really get that anywhere else, even in the corporate bond world. That's very, very high. Okay. So we want STRC. We want STRC for the following reasons. I have some notes here. In March, STRC sucked up $2 billion, and that $2 billion is now in the corporate treasury of Strategy, and they can go buy Bitcoin. In fact, they did buy Bitcoin.
Yeah.
They bought some of the most amount of Bitcoin in recent history. They bought $2.5 billion worth of Bitcoin on April 20th. Okay. That is a very, very big number, right? That's just one instance. They bought 1.5 billion on March 16th, right? And I could go on and on and on. I have a whole list here. Let me help. Let me spin this on, because I think people understand where we're going with this conversation, or where you're going with what you're explaining here. Now let's get into the details of. Well, let me ask this question. I'm going to get into the details of the numbers and how this plan works. You know, as CoffeeZilla kind of points out, there's a very simple view of it, but it's like, hey, he wants to use the money from the stocks, people investing in the stocks. He wants to use it to buy Bitcoin, but then he has to sell Bitcoin to pay dividends to these people. It's just is not a logically sustainable model unless he times it perfectly, right? But I want to start off, before I get into that part, your thoughts on potentially the hypocritical side of all this. Or do you think that Michael Saylor was always misunderstood when he pretty much told people never sell you? I mean, he was at Bitcoin conference and was very clear, never sell a single Satoshi ever for any reason. He was very vocal, by the way, talking about how his strategy moving forward was to use his grand Bitcoin holdings to borrow against it and never sell a single Satoshi. He then goes out and tells people, and obviously he's not being serious, but it's a pretty loud statement to say, sell your kidney before you sell Bitcoin. And now he's pretty much saying, you know, I think I need to sell a little bit to pay these dividends, which is alarming because it's not only hypocritical, but it makes me feel like cash flow on every other element is at its end, and this is the only path forward. It's hard not to see this and think that it's alarming for MicroStrategy's holdings in general and hypocritical of him as a person. Yeah. So two things. I am definitely defending Strategy right now, and I'm going to continue to do that. I don't see a reason for not defending them. I think that Michael Saylor is a genius, and the executive team at Strategy are geniuses who it is quite arrogant, in my opinion, to say anything negative about them if you want Bitcoin's price to go up. But that's okay, because we're all understanding and getting to that conclusion together. I've followed this story for a long time, so I'm very surprised at how some people are reacting. Yeah. I am not here to defend Michael Saylor's statement that you should never sell Bitcoin, right? He's wrong. He was wrong to say that. And, you know, it might be an important question. Why is he willing to say that now? I think it's because two things have changed. I mentioned the one thing that changed. That's that STRC now exists. STRC is a more effective financial vehicle at onboarding capital to Strategy so that they can go out and buy Bitcoin. Okay. That's the first thing that's changed. The second thing that has changed since 2021 is BlackRock has spot ETFs out, right? So MicroStrategy has a different competition that he has to reckon with. And MicroStrategy is also, again, going back to this concept, he's not dealing with mom and pop. He's not dealing with people who aren't familiar with corporate finance. He's dealing with Wall Street. He's saying, hey, Wall Street, I'll give you 11.5 on the dollar if you get into what I'm doing, right? That is an extremely bold claim that people are taking him up on. Now, and it works both ways. So in order to curry the favor of Wall Street, in order to say, hey, look, I know you can go across the street, you can go to BlackRock, you can go to Fidelity and buy their spot ETFs. I know you can do that now. In the past, you haven't been able to do that. You have to come to me to get exposure to Bitcoin. That's the big thing that's changed that most people don't realize. That has been the impetus for Michael Saylor to hire a bunch of very smart financial engineers, and for them to completely pioneer an entire new way of thinking about Wall Street, which is called digital credit, right? That's a big part of all this that really you should have some background knowledge in. But overall, STRC is the response to the competition that is BlackRock's and Fidelity spot ETFs, and now Morgan Stanley. So they've had to get creative. Okay. So maybe I'll pause there. I
think I'm tracking. Effectively, Michael Saylor might have let some things slip from his tongue that he really shouldn't have. But at the end of the day, this is actually a pretty decent business move, in your opinion, and you're analyzing this. And not everyone who make these decisions, like Michael Saylor doesn't make these decisions by himself. He's got a board, he's got advisors, he's got a whole team that works with him. I'm tracking all this stuff. Yeah. Makes sense. Okay. I still don't know. I mean, there's still a part of me that's on board with CoffeeZilla's thought process, but it's not sustainable. To me, Shrum, tell me if I'm wrong. The only way for this to be sustainable is for Michael Saylor to become, and MicroStrategy, I think I did say I think Smay's in chat saying MicroStrategy. It does sound very similar. He would need to pinpoint things like this. Let's say we could back up into the bull market. He's going to need to pinpoint how to buy bottoms, right? He's going to need to pinpoint buying at these levels and then selling. I'll just stop there. He's going to need to pinpoint selling these ones, right? He's going to need to buy low and sell high. Historically, MicroStrategy just buys by, like historically, if I were to keep putting these dots on the tops and bottoms, they would all signal just buying signals. The only way this system works out is if he actually becomes a decent trader.
No. So you're going down a road that I can see why it would be it would make sense to go down that road.
Yeah.
That's not the right road to go down in thinking about this. I haven't gotten to the defense of why selling Bitcoin is okay, right? I haven't even started breaking ground on that. So and the good news is he does not have to do what you just described at all. That is not the business he's in at all. He is a Bitcoin acquiring engine. And so you might ask the question, well, why in the name of Zeus would you ever then part with the asset that your whole company is engineered to acquire? And the answer is MNAV, right? It's something that most people in crypto do not get any exposure to at all. The last time this vocabulary word of MNAV was a popular buzzword floating around, to my knowledge, was when Grayscale's MNAV was at a very big discount and Cathie Wood was going out and buying gobs of GBTC. Do you remember that at all?
Yep.
So MNAV is essentially, it's a Wall Street metric for calculating how much of the underlying asset is, what is the value relative to the actual ETF that the market is buying, right? So if the market is going out and buying billions of dollars worth of GBTC, but there's only $1 worth of Bitcoin, then you have a complete mismatch. That can't happen, right? So the financial regulators came up with this concept of MNAV. You have to disclose to shareholders how much of the underlying asset, whether it be Cattlehead, whether it be gold, whether it be shares of Apple, how much is there relative to the float, the amount of new issuance that you're putting out of the ETF that cradles the basket of goods. Okay, so that's MNAV. It's a regulatory metric for measuring, does the ETF have what it says it has? This is where it gets complicated. MicroStrategy is not an ETF, right? But again, the big thing that's changed in the present time is that there are now ETFs. So the functional ETF that MicroStrategy was in the past, specifically MSTR, they have had to adapt, they've had to evolve. So there's three ways that MicroStrategy can pay the dividends of STRC, that 11.5 huge magnet for capital to come in so that strategy can go out buy Bitcoin. Those three ways are cash. Okay. And this was a big headline a couple of months ago. This would have been January. So January, we remember strategy went out and bought 1 billion, 1.4 billion. Then they bought 700 million, and then they bought $62 million. They went out and acquired a cash hoard, right? That is what they are currently dispensing out to pay off, to pay the dividends for STRC.
Right.
Okay. There's so many layers of complexity to this.
Again, this
You're
is
welcome,
a very
America.
complex issue. Yes, this is why I'm having to break it down like this.
So that's just one way that they can pay the dividends. Can pay the dividends. Can is an important word. There's no, like, the word need is, I think, where people are getting caught up here. They can pay it through dollars, their dollar storage, or they can issue new shares of MicroStrategy, right? Now that gets back into the MNAV part of things. If they print new shares of MicroStrategy, which they can do, Apple can print new shares of Apple, NVIDIA, anybody, Berkshire Hathaway, they could go print new shares, issue new shares. They can also do splits and reverse splits, right?
It hurts current holders because obviously you're liquid. You're adding a bunch of new shares, which lowers it increases the supply, and unless the demand matches that increase, price has to drop of the stock.
Right. It dilutes.
So you don't want to do that much.
Exactly. It dilutes what MicroStrategy's common stock MSTR is.
Yes.
Okay. So those are the two of the ways. The third way is they can sell Bitcoin, convert it into dollars, and then pay out the dividends.
Yes.
That is a way that they have historically said that they would never do. Right. And that's the friction of this week. That's the friction we're experiencing right now, is because they are saying to their shareholders, hey, and really I think that this, honestly, there's a good chance that this is marketing for STRC. They're coming out and saying, hey, for the first time, actually, we would sell Bitcoin in order to pay dividends.
What you're saying is it would make holders of the stock feel more comfortable that their dividends will be paid out.
It makes the MSTR holders happy, puts a smile on their face, and it curries the favor. It is marketing. It makes the Wall Street go, yay, we can go buy STRC now. Because before we had limited assurance that we would get those dividends. Yeah. Because who the heck knows, maybe Michael Saylor one day will decide, actually, we're not going to print new MSTR and we're just going to retire the STRC preferred share stock. And then they're just going to, they have to go find a new yield for that. Right.
This is making more sense as you're explaining the logic of it. Yeah.
Okay. So good. So that's really good. Okay. So there is a number. There is a line in the sand. That line in the sand is MNAV 1.22. Right now, the MNAV for MicroStrategy, MSTR shares relative to Bitcoin that they hold is 1.27. Okay. So it's healthily above that line. Yeah. Now, if it goes below that line, that's not a warning. That's not a bad thing. I think it needs to get down to like something much, much lower. It needs to get down to like 0.63, let's say, before then things are like, whoa, something's wrong, something's scary. If it goes below 1.22, all that means is that it becomes much more aggressively destructive and dilutive for MSTR holders. Okay. So that's not panic mode. That's just, okay, now all of a sudden I don't want to hold MSTR. So that's pretty much the whole thing. In that environment where MNAV is below 1.22, it's actually makes more sense. Makes more sense is doing a lot of work in that sentence. You could make a strong argument since it doesn't make sense, but that's the environment you would sell Bitcoin to pay those dividends of STRC. Remember, we really want STRC because MSTR ain't as strong anymore because it has to compete with IBIT. It has to compete with Morgan Stanley's ETF. It has to compete with, holy crap, I can go buy spot Bitcoin on Schwab, right? Yeah. It is no longer the only horse in town. Okay. So I've explained it. I feel like there's probably some clarifying questions there, but let me tell you guys something here. I bought strategy very long ago, sub 100. I sold all of my MicroStrategy in January when they started converting into cash. Why? Because it's not accretive to my MSTR holdings anymore. Their business activity is not being passed down. The value of that activity is not being passed down like a governance coin versus a utility coin to the MSTR holders anymore. But what did I do? I converted my MSTR holdings into STRC because I am still providing liquidity to the project that I agree with, which is strategy. I agree with it because it is pushing Bitcoin's price up. That is their sole reason for existing. And I also get that 11.5 yield is nice, right? Especially, hey, if we're going to a bear market, maybe I'll just hang out and get some yield. So I myself can put my money where my mouth is with this explanation because I stepped away from the MSTR common shares. I said, I don't want to be a part of this because I'm going to be diluted here. Like if you're issuing a preferred class of shares, obviously the business activity, the value is going to accrete to those dividend distributions, not to my common shares. All right. That's pretty much it. I'm sweating.
It does make sense. And effectively, you might not have explained this, but as you're explaining, I'm just putting pieces together in my brain. Obviously, like I'm going to throw a number out there. If he sells $1 billion of Bitcoin, I don't think he's selling $1 billion of Bitcoin, but let's just say he sells $1 billion worth of Bitcoin to pay off $1 billion of why am I blanking on the word?
The dividend, the STRC dividend.
Yeah, the dividends. The thought process from the MicroStrategy team is we have to liquidate $1 billion of Bitcoin right now. And let me just throw out an obscure number. This is not the translation. 1 million Satoshis, right? That's what they actually care about. They don't really care about the dollar amount. They care about Satoshis. If they had to sell 1 million Satoshis at the current level, doing that will allow them to keep stocks high and get more cash to go buy 1.5 million Bitcoin later. And they actually were able to keep increasing their Bitcoin holdings with that proper strategy. That's what you're saying.
At this point, turning off the STR spigot is more detrimental to Bitcoin than selling a little bit of Bitcoin to pay those dividends. But keep in mind, they're not at the cliff. They're not saying we have to sell Bitcoin. What they're saying is, hey, shareholders, we're opening Pandora's box of we could if we need to. Exactly. They've gone to their legal team and said, hey, how bad would it be if we started selling Bitcoin and without disclosing that we would sell Bitcoin after the dude who runs the company has explicitly said never sell Bitcoin? The legal team probably went, yeah, that'd be pretty bad. You might want to disclose that first. That's what this was. They said it in an earnings call. They didn't say it at a conference. They said it in an earnings call. They said, hey, look, legally, not even really legally. Look, this is an option we want to keep on the table because we're not you. We're not retail that can just go buy Bitcoin, sit on Bitcoin, and be happy. We are running a complex, many moving parts because we're a publicly traded corporation that decided to continue to compete with BlackRock and issue these preferred shares, which, by the way, are risky and questionable in and of themselves. So far, they not only seem to be working, they seem to be insane to the tune of, I read the numbers earlier, some days an entire $1 billion block is going into STRC. People on Wall Street are saying, yeah, I'll give you $1 billion because I want 11.5 on that. Michael Saylor can turn around and buy all that Bitcoin right off the market and make the price go higher. So I like it.
I think you also could say this. You also could say they're changing their mind. It's almost like they realized they said something in the past that was not accurate, and they realized they need to change. Listen, I saw some in the comments earlier in the chat, and we're going to transition here. I'm only going to do one coin technical. We're going to do chain link technical analysis here in a second. But this conversation, I think, was needed, was important. Let me know in the comments, did you guys enjoy this conversation with Shrum? Did you think this was worth not doing 20 minutes of technical analysis to have this conversation? If you guys didn't like it, then maybe we'll never have it again.
Maybe we'll clip it. Maybe we'll make a clip of it.
Maybe we'll clip it. What was I saying? Someone was in chat earlier. They're like, this dude was just on Paul Barron's show 2 weeks ago telling everybody that we're going to 53,000. By the way, I don't think 52,000 is off the table. But as I've said the last couple of days, new things have come to play. Resistance levels I did not think would be broken, got broken, and now all of a sudden you have to change your opinion. I do think it's fair. I think it's something that they have to work through, dealing with the publicity side of Michael Saylor's outspoken do not sell Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. But I think you have convinced me in this conversation this actually could be a very, very positive thing, not only for MicroStrategy, the company, not just for the stock, but even for Bitcoin long term. Whereas I think a lot of initial reactions were, oh crap, Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy are going to start selling their Bitcoin. That means we're about to have a massive crash. It's not really that simple. It's not that straightforward. So I think great conversation there.
Yeah.
Shrum, okay, yeah, your closing
Well,
thoughts.
just the last thing I'd say is we're very far from the word need to sell Bitcoin being something that comes around, right? That there's a Bitcoiner named Adam Livingston. You don't need to go to my screen, but he summarized it like this. He said, at the end of the day, it's simple. Nothing even has to change. They are winning in the current strategy. And if they have to pull the other levers when it makes mathematical sense to do so, the shareholders continue to win. And not at the expense of Bitcoin holders, right? Bitcoin holders continue to win too, because price goes up because they're maintaining this engine that is hyper trained at sucking in capital to then go buy Bitcoin when the time's right. So, or immediately. I had fun. I don't know that I would have had fun listening to what I had to say, but there you go. These guys are wizard geniuses, by the way. And again, when I say they're pioneering a new field of finance called digital credit, go look what that means. Digital credit, crazy stuff.
There we go. Shrum, thank you so much for coming on here. We'll have you again. I think we'll probably be back on tomorrow for our normal news segment. Now you're going to be out though for a day or two. You're moving again. You're just a traveling man this weekend, right?
That's right. I'm a rambling man, as they say. I can't stay in one place too long, or else I start getting the itch. I gotta ramble on.
All right. Well, have fun packing, and we'll have you on again tomorrow.
Love it.
Adios. All right, guys, we're over. We're over the show, but I'll do one thing. We normally on Wednesdays do Chainlink, Zcash, Aave, and Tesla. I see some people saying, can we do Ondo TA? Ondo TA is tomorrow. So I'm going to hold off on Ondo. Someone else said Tau. We did Tau yesterday. So maybe we'll do Tau again tomorrow, though, if there's something crazy happening there. We're going to take a look at Chainlink real quickly. We'll call it a day here today. Again, I'm over time as it is. So Chainlink, though, making some big moves here. Chainlink over the highs from here in March. Once again, I mean, I did not think that was going to happen. I did think there would be some strong resistance in this play. One of the reasons why is because we were creating some pretty bearish structure with Link. We had the sell signals in place, but again, there's recent momentum coming in. And I think a lot of it with increased optimism on the Clarity Act. Even the Ondo token, someone said, Tim, we look at Ondo. I said this yesterday. Why are Ondo and Chainlink both doing well right now? I think this is evidence that a lot of this rally is from optimism about the Clarity Act, because Ondo and Chainlink are two of the altcoins that probably stand the most to get, at least some of the most to gain from a Clarity Act bill passing, right? So the optimism is pumping markets, kind of changed the spread here. We did get daily buy signals that came in here, just like Bitcoin. I told you guys yesterday, because this pump started yesterday, look for a move, potentially even back up towards 1078. And just like Bitcoin right now, I got a fresh daily buy signal. And even though my 4-hour chart is screaming overbought and even giving me a 4-hour sell signal at the moment, my thought process here, and I think I said this yesterday, but I definitely said to VIP traders earlier today, is more than likely we probably will see some mild pullback here in the next couple of hours. We probably will come back down here towards just below $10. But my guess is a higher low comes in. Again, we are in a bullish structure that right now, as this RSI, people like to think if the RSI gets to 70 or 80, that's an automatic sell signal. No, it is not. When we start seeing bearish divergences and then we start to see weakness coming in back below that 50 line, that's when we'll start to say it's bearish. I think I showed this earlier, but I want to show it to you again based on the Chainlink chart. All right, I can just about go ahead and tell you time periods that were sideways, bullish, or bearish. You guys want to see how I can tell you just off the RSI? I bet you in this whole time period right here, we were bullish. In this whole time period right here, we were sideways. And I want to scroll back even further here to find bunches. There we go. So that's bullish. Let's see right here. I bet you during this whole time period right in here, the charts were bearish. Now, I'm going to circle this. We're going to go up and compare this. The reason why is because I'm looking at where's the RSI spending a lot of time bouncing at or below the 50 line. Where is it spending a lot of time bouncing up above the 50 line? And where does it keep going back and forth from overbought to oversold, that tells me a lot about what price action is doing. I sure enough go to the price action chart. Let's take a look at what price was doing. Oops, did not mean to draw right there. Let's take a look at what price was doing during those time periods. Sure enough, let me minimize this other stuff so you guys can see it pretty clearly. Come on, Tim. There we go. All right. This time period, guess what Chainlink's doing? Dropping from $18 all the way down to $10.95. Guess what? During this time period, what's Chainlink doing? It's going from $10.95 all the way up here. I probably called it a little too early because I only called it up here about $20. We did have a decent little pullback here, and that's why we come back overextended. Now, again, here, we were downward right in here, but right in this part, we were definitely sideways. So maybe misread that a little bit right there. But in a nutshell, you can pretty much look at the RSI and understand what currently is happening. And one of the things you're looking at is, when is RSI extremely volatile, or when is it staying above the top half? When is it staying in the bottom half? You have a pretty good understanding of the trend direction of what's going on. Right now, with what Chainlink is doing, it's just finished a lot of boring action, right? So I can get rid of these drawings, right? So this tells me right in here with the back and forth. This right here is bearish, big bearish crash. Sideways action on Chainlink, sideways. We just extended, broke the structure to the upside. It actually would not surprise me on this 4-hour chart to watch the RSI do something like this for a little bit and watch price action go to the upside here before making a big decision. After that, if we see the RSI drop below 50, we'll probably watch the price drop as well. If we see the RSI continue, though, let me get rid of this drawing right here, if I can. If you see this continue like this, more than likely what has happened with price action is we have broken this key resistance and we are continuing to the upside. In a nutshell, right now, I took a educated guess. If you told me, you've backed me up 3 weeks ago and said, Tim, or 2 weeks ago and said, Tim, should we be looking at shorts? I'm going to tell you, yes, the charts were saying look at shorts. That analysis was wrong. The charts got it wrong. Doesn't do it often, but it does it from time to time. And now we are in mode. I'm just trying to be very honest with you guys. We are in mode. Don't FOMO in, but look for weakness in the RSI back towards the 50 line to buy in during bullish structure, because right now we are under bullish structure. When that changes and the RSI drops back down to oversold, we will change and we'll look for short positions. I still think daily sell signal, the next daily sell signal, probably going to be important. It's going to be important to watch. But right now, as I'm looking at it, I'll pull back up my other indicators. I'm not expecting that to happen right now. I think the RSI's got some room to climb. There's no daily bearish divergence. We're not even in overbought territory, and we're sitting at fresh buy signals from the daily chart here, just 2 days old. What this tells me is more than likely Chainlink wants to continue up. But what I would look for on the 4-hour or 1-hour charts, probably we'll see some form of a pullback. But if I can get this RSI back down towards the 50 line and then get a fresh buy signal on the 4-hour, I would be looking to enter into a long scout position here on Chainlink up here towards 1070, almost $11. A lot of chaos right in there. I'm gonna clean those drawings up here in just a second. Guys, that's all we have for the live show today. Thank you so much for everyone who was here. Smash the like and hit subscribe on your way out. By the way, if you want to trade these markets, like I said, there was a week-long period last week, heavily manipulated. We had in our 10x challenge, we lost I think 3 or 4 trades in a row. I told our traders that was going to happen. We are just on another 3-win streak. And now after 4 weeks of a 10x challenge, we are up 4.5x in our investment. If you want to trade right now with us, there's 2 ways to do it. Go join the VIP trading group, get our indicators, and start trading that way. Or go sign up with TOOBIT, the #1 exchange in the game right now. I'll show you their little movement there. There we go. Go sign up with TOOBIT right now with our link down below. The best fees out there, VIP level 1 fees starting off from the get-go. But also when you deposit $100 or more, you can get free access to live trading sessions, live trade setups, and the 10x challenge trades that we are doing. So all of that can be found in the description down below. I'll see you guys tomorrow, same time, same place. Love you guys. Adios.